Hey, good afternoon. Today I'm going to show you how to make bacon cheeseburger casserole. This isn't the healthiest recipe, but it is good for a party. And what you can do is you can put it together ahead of time. You can either make it fresh like I'm going to do today, or you can use leftovers if you've got them for part or all of the recipe. Okay? So first thing you're going to need is you're going to need 5 pounds of yellow potatoes, peeled and cooked. I'm going to use my pressure cooker for these. If you're going to boil them regular, what you do want to do is make sure they're slightly undercooked because it's going to be going in the oven after. You're going to need a pound of bacon, and what I do is I make sure that when I buy mine, I try to get one that's fairly meaty looking like this one. You will need 1 pound of extra lean ground beef. Now the reason you're getting the extra lean is this actually works out cheaper, you know, because there's not as much fat and water that comes off, and I am going to be frying it in part of the leftover bacon grease. No, not all of it. A couple of just onions, regular Spanish onions, and I got some leftover cheese slices that I'm going to be using for this. I got 8 or 9 here, whatever you're going to need to cover the pan, and for sure you're going to need a 4-quart glass oven safe pan. So first thing I'm going to do is get the bacon going. First step is wash the bacon. I always rinse my bacon under cold water. First, what it does, it removes some of the chemicals and salt off it, plus wet bacon renders faster, which is always nice, so you save on time and heating costs. Just give it a rough chop. Put the wet chopped bacon in your biggest frying pan and just kind of spread it out. Put it on medium-low heat and set that to render while you start getting the potatoes peeled. Potatoes are all peeled and ready to start cooking. Now, if you're not accustomed to cooking bacon, there's a couple of stages on this. First, when you put it in the pan, all the water will come out, and then second of all, it will start to render, which means the fat will come out. Now, you're going to notice all this gooey stuff on the bottom. There's quite a bit of flavor in there. So to speed up the process and also to get the stuff off the bottom, I'm going to put in a cup of water. And stir it up. And what that does is you can see the brown goo coming off the bottom. The technical term, cooking term for this is deglazing the pan. Okay, so what you do is get all the stuff off the bottom, and don't worry about the water because it's all going to boil off and it's going to help the fat come out of the bacon. So in the meantime, I'm going to start the potatoes boiling and get the onion chopped. Now usually I wouldn't bother to show you how to cut an onion because I'm guessing most people know how to do that. But I do want a particular cut on this, so I will show you that. So after you cut the ends off, cut them down in half like that. Just peel the first layer off. Okay, once you got your halves there, what you do is you want to slice them in really thin half-moon rings like that. The reason I'm doing it this way is because it'll form strands when it's frying, and you're going to get far better coverage when you put the casserole together at the end, as opposed to you cutting them into like little squares now. You'll see while it's frying. Potatoes are still cooking, and the onion, as you can see on the side, is chopped. Now, so take a look at this. All the water has boiled off, and only part of the grease is rendered out. And it's starting to stick up again, so yes, I'm going to hit it again with another cup of water, because that only took like 5 minutes or so to come out. And it just helps the rest of the grease come out without the bacon itself burning and getting too crisp for when you bake it later. Potatoes are nearly cooked. I did have to put a 1/3 glass of water in here And you know, if you've got time and the patience for it, you're actually always best to use the water method to get all the fat out before you start frying it. But I haven't got that much time tonight. So what I've done now, since I'm not going to be putting any more water in it, is I've turned the heat down from medium high to medium low. And this should allow a bit more of the fat to come out. So the bacon's just about done there, done enough. Now, one thing I forgot to mention to you, one of the benefits of using the water method is the bacon does not get stuck to the bottom of the pan, as you can see right there. Okay, because if it gets completely, see here it's still nice and slidey, all right, which is really what you want, because if the bacon's all stuck to the bottom, you cannot get a lot of the fat out, which is a serious problem. Okay, so for this, you turn the heat right down. Let me just move that a bit so you can get a good look at it. Get that so your pan is under control. And start pushing the bacon up. To get the grease to come out. Now, if you've rendered this out long enough, you'd be surprised how much comes out of here. Now, when you get at this point, what you can do is you can either get a spoon, or I've got this nice gravy ladle here that works just perfect for me. What you do is you run the gravy ladle in the bottom, get the fat up, and just put it in a glass or some other thing like that. Because trust me, there is way more than enough fat left in this that you do not have to leave any in the bottom of the pan. Now the bacon is slightly underdone because it will continue to cook with the onion and the beef. So get all the bacon fat you can out of here. Give that a little push maybe. And when you're happy with that, get the onion in the pan. You are not going to be adding any salt to this dish at all. There's more than enough with the bacon. What you might want to do is hit it with some ground pepper a bit. Now the water in the onion will help to deglaze the pan. And the salt in the bacon will help to bring the water out of the onion. So while the onions are frying in the bacon there, get your potatoes mashed. Now for these, honestly, again, like I said, no salt. There's enough fat in this dish, you probably don't need to put any milk or cream at all. However, if the potatoes are being a little uncooperative and they're a little dry, like you can see that they are, just put just enough bit by bit to get them to bind up. Ideally, the mashed potatoes should be cool when you put the casserole together. So now that I've put just enough milk that they're nice and creamy, I'm going to pop them outside while I finish cooking the rest of the dish. This is where we are with the bacon and onions. Now the extra lean beef has nearly no fat at all, okay? So you can cook it directly in here. And it will fry up with whatever residual fat is left in the bacon. Just break it up into chunks and stir it pretty often. So when the beef is cooked and it starts making these happy sizzling noises like this, right, that's why I'm giving you good close up so you can see when you push down on it, there's no water, but there is some grease coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off the heat. Yeah, and if I leave it go anymore, it's going to start sticking to the pan again. So what I'm going to do is take this off the heat and put this to strain to get as much grease out as possible before it goes into the oven. I've got the oven heating up to 350 Fahrenheit. And before I start assembling, I thought I'd just point out one thing. This is the grease that I took out of the bottom. And it's been draining for about 5 or 10 minutes. And that's the amount that's drained off again. Okay? So, even though you're eating, quote, unhealthy food, if you cook it in a healthy way, and get as much of this out as you can, it doesn't wind up on your butt or in your arteries, which is more than you can say when you go down to the store and order some of this up there. You control your ingredients, you control the fat content, sodium content, and it turns out, honestly, over time to be way cheaper. Anyways, so back to this. What you're going to do is get a serving spoon, kind of eyeball about half of that. Okay. Put that down in the bottom of the casserole dish. Yeah, just settle that on and down. Okay. And start mushing that around with the spatula to cover the bottom. If that's looking a bit thin, get some more from the pan, and once it's just about even, make sure your hands are clean and just get in there quick and even it out with your fingers. I do put a bit of water in the bottom here first because you don't want it sticking, and no, I don't want to grease the bottom. Okay, water's just fine. So once that's in, take your drained mixture, let's turn that out. Try to keep it away from the edges. Spread that out with your spatula. Now, if you're cooking this way ahead, yeah, you would have cooled this off first. So once that's even out, and you're going to get your cheese, and just put a single layer of slices on top. Okay, now you do not want to be using the spatula for this part because it'll tear up the cheese. So making sure your hands are clean, just get in there with your fingers, get a handful of potatoes, and just start breaking it up into small pieces. Then after the mashed potatoes are on about as even as you can get them, then take your spatula, which I've cleaned, and kind of roll over it like this a bit, trying to get it even and flat. Now, if there's a few spots where the cheese is coming out, this is going to bubble up while it's cooking anyway, so that's not a big deal at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this with tin foil and pop it in the oven now that's preheated for around 30-40 minutes until it's cooked. So I just came out of the oven. It's been a little over 45 minutes, closer to 50. As you can see, it's cooked. I'll just give you a nice shot. Give you a little close-up on this corner there. Yeah. So the cheese looks cooked. Everything looks cooked. I'll get a plate, dish some up, let you have a look at it. As you can see, it's completely cooked. Potatoes are nice. The cheese is melted down a bit, down into the filling, and the potatoes did not burn or stick to the bottom, so I would say it's a nice success. So there it is, my bacon cheeseburger casserole. Thanks for watching, and I do hope you try this.